Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I have RDV. We are going to be discussing the Guy Pearce Blade Runner ripoff vehicle called Zone 414. It's allegedly a sci-fi detective sort of thriller where he plays a detective who goes undercover in a colony full of synthetic androids, one of them that's got a great AI, so he can search for the missing gazillionaire's daughter. And I'll start off, RDV, by saying that this is one of the rare films that no matter what you see as far as review goes, everybody says pretty much the same thing. No, there's really no sci-fi, which is true. But looks good. It's got some good acting in it, which I think it does. Some interesting scenes. But to me, it just lacks punch. It's one of those reviews that everybody says the same thing, but in the rare cases, everybody's right. Because I like Guy Pearce a lot, and he's one of those actors that you think about that you go, man, well, I just walked out of the theater and this guy's really good. How come he's not a major star? And instead, he does a lot of these low budget type films, and been watching him for a very long time and have nothing but good things to say about his performance in this movie, as well as some other hit or miss things. What's your initial take on this movie, Zone 414?
I actually liked it. Unlike Blade Runner was just way too long. This is like if you took Blade Runner and cut out all the garbage out.
Well, let's stop right there for a moment, because I know you've mentioned before here on the Xtreme Movie Show when we've done some films that you're not the biggest Blade Runner fan. When you say Blade Runner, you're referring to the original and not the remake?
Not the remake. Well, there was a remake. There was a sequel.
Sequel, if you want to call it that, that's fine.
Well, that's what it's called. It's a sequel. It wasn't a remake. It was a sequel.
Well, we can quibble all we want and argue, but the
bottom
line is I'm trying to have you differentiate between which Blade Runner film you have the issue with, because I don't know if it's both, and I think that has merit for what we're discussing tonight.
When I say Blade Runner, I mean that Blade Runner 2049 is the sequel with Harrison Ford.
Alrighty then.
No, this one did lack a little bit of punch. Guy Pearce, not a lot of action. There's more thriller, more nuance in the culture as far as the cyberpunk era. As far as the town where they're in, it's a trial area, and he's sent in. He's basically hired to come in and just like find the guy's daughter. Him going in, he's just going for the money. He doesn't care about the droids. He's just there for the paycheck. And then the people he comes across in there. He comes across one of the AIs in there. Matilda Anna Ingrid Lutz. She plays the main robot. I think his name is Jane, or not sure which one it is, but yeah, he's the one. She's the last one that saw the guy's daughter. The eccentric billionaire, and I'll say that was really interesting, but also really bad at the same time. The main billionaire, the guy who runs this. That was a little bit cringe.
You want to talk about the good stuff and then the bad stuff, because there's definitely, like I say, hit or misses, and you're talking about one of them right now.
Yeah, and I agree. This isn't a great movie, but I like the aspect. I love the feel of it. Yes, it does take cues from Cyberpunk or not Cyberpunk, but Blade Runner. But a lot of stuff does. Doesn't necessarily make it bad. Sometimes people can improve on things, and I like about that. Yeah. The main he's not, I wouldn't call him a bad guy. He's not really a bad guy. He's just a guy. He's pretty much, he created the first android.
The swishy millionaire.
Yeah. And I think his name is in here. Is it Marlon? Is that what his name is in here? Yeah. I think it's
Marlon Voight.
Marlon Voight. It comes off eccentric, but also comes off like he's one of those dudes who you just can't get a girlfriend, so he has to build his own robot. He pretty much built like sex dolls. It's pretty much what they are, almost.
Let me stop you right there, because this, I thought sometimes we go by movies scene by scene or act by act, or we just talk highlights and lowlights. But I just thought there's a few people thingies to talk about. And you're bringing up a really interesting point. When we first meet this guy, he's in this awesome estate. It's beautiful. And you're like, hey, this is old world money. This guy's probably got class. Okay, it's going to be one of these older guys or whatever. And he comes out and he swishes his way through. He's really kind of effeminate acting too. It's interesting because while he's explaining the situation about finding his missing daughter, he's got people coming in, making him food, putting a bib on him and stuff, and he has this really bad plastic surgery look on his face, like he's been operated on it, and it's so horrible looking. I'm going, is that because this is a low budget movie, or this is intentional? Because it was not horrific at all or serious, and I think the good tone that the movie established with some wonderful looking shots. I agree with you totally. This scene here is like, what the hell's going on with this weirdo dude? You know?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the other guy's name of the other actors, but it kind of reminds me of the main bad guy from Hardcore Henry. In a sense, this kind of movie kind of has that.
Right.
The guy created things, you know, wants to control it and stuff, but it kind of throws you for a loop because this turns out to be a murder mystery. Spoilers for those who aren't going to who haven't watched it or going to watch it. The daughter is found dead in this. She's found hanging. She basically looks like she hung herself. But as Guy Pearce, you know, says to the main guy, he says like, "Dude, I found here's your body, you know, about your daughter. Bring it back to her. But hey, to let you know, I know suicide, and I know that she didn't kill herself because, first of all, there's no chair whatsoever where she hung herself. How did she get up there? You know? So right there, and he tells the guy, he's like, well, no. The guy cares more about his business, his livelihood, his millions of dollars. You know, he refers himself as God. I'm the God of Zone 114. And we haven't had any crimes whatsoever. And if you say something, you'll destroy my company, my livelihood, all that stuff. So he cares more about his wealth than he cares about his daughter and seeking justice. Now,
it was very weak writing, I thought, on this too, because there's no surprise, there's no gotcha. This movie's got that old 1940s kind of tone to it, and he's making these kind of conversations, and you're like, really, bro?
There kind of is towards the end, though. There is a little plot twist because you think, you know, he's done this off. He goes back because there's the girl he's helping out, the android. We keep calling her girl, but she's really an android. Someone's been calling her, leaving her, you know, messages, and she works as like an escort. You know, humans come all the time in there. They pay a lot of money, you know, and she's basically to be whatever they want her to be. But and she even goes to her boss in the zone, who works for the main guy, Marlon, and
Wait.
yeah, and like her boss lady says, like, well, how do you know it's not a client? It's just paying, you know, the experience to harass you. She's like, it's like, okay, but she doesn't really believe it. And what's neat about this is his first creation. The android that Guy Pearce is helping out. She, unlike the other ones, seems more alive, but you almost get the sense that, like, well, like the other lady's like, well, how do you know your emotions are real? We could have programmed you to be that way, you know, because people like, you know, depressed girls, you know. We even see a scene where she's so terrified, so scared and stuff, so sad, where she actually cuts her wrists. And you see the inner works of her hand, the gears and all stuff. But then you also see right away that her skin, whatever it is, just instantly seals back up. So just taking that, pausing right there, like the fact your skin heals over there, that makes me think like freaking Matrix right there. If any of these things like decide to turn against humans, because right now we don't know at this point. We don't know who killed the guy's daughter, you know, Marlon's daughter. But we do learn through Jane that his daughter decided to basically sorry, someone's interrupting me. Well, no, we learned that through Jane that Marlon's daughter was tired of, you know, she wanted to run the zone, and she wanted to be known as a synthezoid. All right, so yeah, it's interesting to find out. Yeah, she basically was depressed. She wanted to go to the city, you know, and this leads to her being murdered because they mistake her as a synthezoid, because synthezoids are basic property. So that was kind of an I guess that was part of the script. I mean, it's not a strong thing, but
Yeah, it's Daddy's little rich girl trying to run away and all that stuff. And one of the biggest problems with this movie is, and I'll agree with you, whether somebody likes Blade Runner or not or finds it boring, that is one big criticism of the original film, is that even like the sequel, it's kind of slow and monotonous. This movie's got that too, which I don't think's bad. But what's bad is that it's set in a really interesting setting, but they don't explain why things are the way they are or any of the science stuff behind it. It's like, okay, we have, in that hint of that first conversation, some interesting topics that just get glossed over. Like, yeah, we got to create this one area where it's the only place the government allows you to interface with androids. And then I charge people $1 million a visit. But, of course, the government has to proof you and go in and do that. And you have to wait for this and that. And it could speak to modern times with things that are going on around the world. But I don't mind that they didn't necessarily do a deep dive on it, but the point is they don't set up anything here that gets you emotionally attached to a character. And if you're not going to be emotionally vested into something, then what are you going to care about the supposedly good payoff in this film? Because the AI that he meets, to your point, that was the gazillionaire's first creation, but also supposed to be his best. She was like too good at her job. She was so empathic when they have the scene there of the one guy, her client. He just basically talks about somebody else, and she's like, "Oh, I can look like her," and she changes her hair really quick, by touching it. It's kind of neat looking, actually. It's just to your point, losing her mind. It's like, yeah, this really is just a story that we've all kind of seen in bits and pieces in other films, all put together with nothing more to it. And it's unfortunately, I think it doesn't allow you to appreciate some of the really good parts to it, because, as I've said before, it's a low budget film. It's shot in Ireland. Some really great, fantastic scenes to it. It's got an aesthetic to it that's neat. I don't know who made this film, including the production designers, the director, the writer, everybody said, hey, if this looks any way like Blade Runner, maybe we just put our own spin on it, because they, down to the blue hair, didn't bother. But I will say this, to kind of talk about what I think was the highlight of the film, is not just Guy Pearce and his acting, because he's working an accent really hard in this. I actually thought the main actress, who was in a horror movie called Revenge a few years ago, I thought she was exceptional as a lead android. And of course, as a character, I don't care about her because she's, like you said, property. So I guess the question is it really violence? If it's or rape or a snuff film, if they're androids, because that's kind of what they hint at in this movie. But I thought she was fantastic. I thought, you know what? She was much better than in the Blade Runner sequel than the lady that was in there that was also in Terminator 2 and all that. I thought, wow, she really kind of impressed me. To me, she didn't really have a right in that role to be as good as she was, but she was solid. But yeah, this whole movie rests on Guy Pearce doing an incredible acting job. And I will say what kind of got me, and I don't know if it got you, and I wanted your take on this. The gazillionaire's brother, who works for him, is like a psychologist, and he interviews him, and he's so laid back and chill, interviewing Guy Pearce at the beginning, like, all right, you can meet my, brother or whatever. And then at the end, he pays Guy Pearce and all that. Then we find out he's the real psycho in the family, and he's the one that actually killed her, and he has his reasons why. But I thought, instead of him going maniacal, like you get, evil genius, he's so chilled and laid back as he's telling Guy Pearce all this stuff. And I thought that was one of the best scenes of the film. And it was an extended scene because it's like, you know what? Let me show you something. I just wish I could show somebody this. And he walks him into the room and shows him his Frankenstein creation. And I'm like, what the hell? That was the only scene that was kind of like, okay, maybe I didn't see that coming. But that actor, he did a really, really good job in that scene. And to me, that payoff there at the end, because that to me is the payoff, that's almost worth it too. It's not, like you said, an action film. It's just one that kind of glosses over a lot of things, but it does so in a way that's kind of seductive, because it's, again, I would argue it's not really a great film, but it's decent and it's watchable, wouldn't you say?
So I was actually hooked with finding out who's actually stalking her, and you see the guy right all the way, and then him, struggling with, as far, is he gonna help her out, or if he's just gonna screw over and leave? Because after he decides at the last minute, we find out, that the guy stalking her and trying to kill, torture this robot Jane, is the brother. So, and we find out, obviously this leads to more of the fact we find out that he actually is the killer later on. And then we learn that what we saw earlier was a ruse. He actually, the owner, wanted him to get justice for his daughter. So he had him go on and just kill his brother. Find out his brother and take over him. So I like that. Of course, it has a happy ending. We learned earlier from hints earlier in the book. We talked about how some people will actually take androids, buy them, purchase them, but they never leave these walls. He ends up giving the money he gets, from doing the job, ends up, I guess forming a bond, as a father or daughter or whatever. I don't know.
Lovers, but which wasn't done well at all.
Yeah, but he takes her with her, but overall, like it was creepy though that the guy, the man brother, and you could kind of, I don't know. It's like I was wondering who would be the villain. It's a small cast. It's a $5 million budget movie. I didn't expect it to be like over the top, big blockbuster. Because you could have sunk like 125 million or 500 million in this, and probably got the same results. That's just the way.
I agree with you totally. It would not have been any better.
Yeah. But like I said, I enjoyed it for what it was. I like Brian Edward Hill's writing. He's a comic book writer. He's also did some other stuff too as well. So I was more excited for this because it's more like the cyberpunk kind of like that. Especially after coming off playing cyberpunk, 2037, playing that. I give anything that has a cyberpunk, because it's very limited content. I give it a gotcha through because how often do you see it? You don't. The last we saw was Blade Runner 2. That was the last, and then we got Cyberpunk the video game, and then now this comes out as a small little trying to make a little money off of it. The scenery I love in this, like I said, like the town stuff was good. The only thing that I was thinking about, because she lives in an apartment with no drapes, and there's always those helicopters flying over, and like with the floodlights, that would drive me nuts. But I'm thinking about she's a robot, so why would she care? She doesn't. It won't affect her at all. But I was like, keeps freaking lighting up the place. It's like searchlights. That would just I had to get drapes. But I did love the fact at the very beginning though of this movie. You see him walking into like this prison, and then this girl is like begging for her life. I'm like, at first right away, I'm like, you're kind of tricked in. Like, what is this guy? This guy's a creep and just executes this girl until he she shoots her in the head, and then he like cuts her head open. I was like, oh, he's pulling the skin back, the hair, and then you see it is actually like a memory chip, and he's pulling out. It's blinking still, and she's just kind of laying there. That was cool. I love futuristic cyber kind of punk like stuff like that. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was expecting that, because I really didn't read I didn't read too much about it. I just knew it was Guy Pearce, and Guy Pearce in the lead role is usually pretty good, because we watched Lockout, and this kind of had similar feelings to me for Lockout as well, because he was hired to go, save the president's daughter while he's getting hired to go find out what happened to this guy's daughter. It's almost like he just likes going and looking for people's daughters. He doesn't say them all the time, but like I said, I don't really see Guy Pearce in a lot of lead roles. He's always the bad guy. So I'm always exception, it's one exception rule for Guy Pearce movies. I will watch him in his hero stuff where he's the main lead, even if it sucks, because it's different from the norm. Travis Fimmel plays Marlon, the main. What's the guy who runs everything? The guy who owns everything.
Billionaire.
Yeah. Travis Fimmel, who's also known from he's from the live action World of Warcraft, which sucked. But he also was on Vikings.
Yep.
So he's big, known for that. So you had some some people in here, Matilda, that's who's from Rings and also from Revenge. So it's, and then Jonathan Arias, who plays the brother though, I think he's been in some other stuff too. He was a BBC television series Sherlock. That's what he was. And it's Philip Anderson. But and that guy was creepy as it is. Oh my gosh, like I want to see that guy in more like creepy serial roles, because how the guy I always forget his name is, but he played Scarecrow in the Batman Begins, the Nolan movies. He has that one look with him, He just when you have those eyes, the way you look like you could be like a creepy guy, like a serial killer, someone who's obsessed with stuff. That usually, really hypes up the movie mark, because when they actually people look like they're perfectly cast, because we want to be sold that this is fake. This is we want to immerse ourselves into this. So seeing as him being like, from the beginning, him asking these questions, something. I'm like, okay, I can see how he could be like, the killer because he was snubbed by his brother. Even Guy Pearce says like, it's like, dude, like, hey, it's like I would be upset too. You're like, you're your brother's bitch. It's like you do everything, you get no credit, no reward, you have no say. It's like you're just coasting along, and your brother just just invented something. It must drive you nuts. And like I said, that scene in there when he shows the room where it shows like the Frankenstein thing, that really sold it more too. I was like, oh man, he's like, leave me be. I'm gonna go cut this now. And like you almost feel bad for it. It's like even though it's a robot, it really plays on your psyche. It's like I know it's like in my mind it's thinking like this is like it could be a person, but no, it's a robot. But it's like it's one of those things, mind bendings. But yeah, this was a low budget movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was a low budget movie. I would still say give it a watch. I wouldn't say it's a horrible movie. I wouldn't say it's a great movie. It's good. I'll say that. I mean, as far as there's certain parts, and there's also stuff that's you try to roll your eyes out. But what today can you not roll your eyes out? You take what you can.
It's the white rice of video on demand or whatever because it's there, it's filling, no nutritional value, but it's not bad, and you can't dress it up. And I just wish they would have went, honestly, to use a play on our name here on the Xtreme show. I wish they went a little more extreme because the tone was there, the set pieces were there.
Well, yeah.
And I like what you said earlier about this could have been a big budget film. It wouldn't have made it any better. I totally agree. And Guy Pearce and even some of the side acting here was done really well. They were committed to it, and I appreciate that. It didn't feel like it was just a throwaway film that they thought, well, let's just collect a paycheck. It's a competent film. It works. It's just lacking punch to me. And unfortunately, them talking about certain things and insinuating certain themes, whether it was about, mankind having a dark side and we're going to contain it in this one area versus the government only allowing you certain things. And then, of course, quote unquote, evil businessman guy, because that's all business are portrayed these days. The whole cop thing that wouldn't drink. And then we see him drinking later. And it's like, whatever. And I can't get emotional about robots, and maybe some people can. I don't know. That's something to talk about later. But I think, unfortunately, because of how good Matilda was acting as it, I almost wanted to start liking it because it's like I thought she was good, but her character is just the robot. So at the very, very end, after he's gone through everything, like you said, when he paid to have her released, and she comes walking out, and it's implied that they're now a couple together. I was like, we didn't really need to see that. It doesn't add anything to the story. We didn't see a budding romance develop along the way. We saw them working together and helping each other out, but that's it. No attraction necessarily.
Do you know what probably would have made this movie 10 times better? Having more action. The fact you have all this here, you could have had, it's a human person that was going around, that killed the daughter, the guy. Can you imagine if it would have because and as I say, it was getting the Blade Runner because that's what Blade Runner was. It was a rogue. A cyborg, that was going around killing people,
Mm-hmm.
They usually could have done this here too, because look at this way, they didn't even do that, and they still got compared to Blade Runner. So my point is like, why not just go ahead and do with it? Call it something else. Don't completely, you can still change stuff because Blade Runner had certain things, but I just wanted more action. I mean, he's got that gun. Let him use the gun more. You only use it once.
Well, you saw how most of the shots, or a lot of them, you get a quick cuts of him entering places and leaving, and they're all cameras. So I was wondering, they're making a very obvious point here through most of this film of showing all that. Is that going to have, the fact that they're constantly monitored some impact? Because that's obviously how we are today in a society, not just here in America, but around the world. We're heavily monitored with everything, not just financial transactions, but our movements and everything else. And I thought, there's a lot of ways you could go in here. You could, to your point, make it action. And to your point about being a Blade Runner ripoff, I thought the one thing instantly they could have done that would have made it not been Blade Runner was have some of these synths being killed, or he finds out that some are after the daughter. And so he's trying to find out who the real killer is because the daughter is first. He finds her and some others are dying. And we find out it's another like rogue synth or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one that the brother built because he was doing that anyway. Add a science fiction to it, or talk about some reason why they are the way they are, or some reason why this one's developing empathy and the other ones afterwards are not. They didn't even bother with that, which makes you go, really?
Yeah, it would have made more sense to just have Jane being the only one that actually has sympathy, where the other ones are actually going around just killing everybody human. You know, they're going rogue, they're programming. He said, no, could be the brother who introduced the virus into the system, and that's causing the defect. You know, and then you get those guys out there when he comes outside the guards, the dude with the giant beard and everything. Honestly, like he's got the machine guns, never really used. They're just there for like just guards outside, make sure nobody comes in. They got a little barricade. I wanted a firefight. You got guns. You're showing me guns, but you don't use them. They're there for show. I mean, at least Blade Runner used some of the gun, once in a while, but no, for how long it is. He said you don't have to do exactly just like Blade Runner, but in a sense, you have so much potential. He said, you can have the human be a killer, but you can also have the robot controlling the human. Maybe they're blackmail or something, or the human and one of the synths are lovers, and they're working together. That's all you need to do is that, and then just having him going in there, he's like, all right, I trust Jane, and then Jane turns on me. They all turn on him. They all hate humans. Like that's, and then leave it like that.
That would have been cynical, and I probably would have liked it.
Oh my gosh, that would have been great. Having at the very end, you find out that like they're all coming to destroy mankind, but they're passing it off, And at the very end, you find out that the owner, like the guy, Marlon, is actually a synth himself. He died a long time ago. He was murdered, and synth recopied him. That the brother actually wasn't a villain. The brother actually was human trying to get revenge. Trying to escape. Like there's so much stuff you could do.
That would be like the Chinese people infiltrating all members, high-end levels of our government. This would be like a thing kind of insinuating that too, because people read what they want. And unfortunately, this movie played it safe, because you're right, this guy's done other things, competent things. And I felt let down because of how solid I thought the structure was. I was like, okay, where's the meat? And unfortunately, we didn't get that. As we wrap up, let me ask you, you got any other final thoughts or observations on this film, Zone 414 with Guy Pearce?
Zone 414, it's funny because 414 is my area code, my phone. I want them to come out with sequels and just have say that this isn't the only zone, and actually wanted to do what I said. Hey, you guys are listening. I doubt it, but make it more action, more stuff if you have to. Call it something else you want to. Call it Zone 414. You have a good primary idea here, but what you messed up. The City of Robots. Cyberpunk. Look at the video game. Look, as much as that turned out to be like an environmental thing, weird stuff. But you can have those factors in this movies like that. I know I think it probably comes down more to as far as the money, because Brian Edward Hill usually a hit or miss. I mean, he just recently did a comic book, that was like 5 issues long, but it was awesome. It was 80 cents away for Thriller. More cyberpunk. They have the access, the opportunity to do here. If they just need money, man, it shouldn't be that hard to get money. If you market it, what you're gonna do, you don't exactly say everything you're doing, but you had Guy Pearce on here. Guy Pearce, to me, well, I personally don't see him in a lot of movies. I don't see him as a bad guy, but I still think he's like an A-list celebrity. Bruce Campbell might be more popular than him. That's only because Bruce Campbell takes every role and does silly roles. He's comedy, where Guy Pearce does the villain bad guy stuff. You can bring in Catherine Winnick, bring in you can get as many people as you want to hear, as long as you make it more action. More action, more thriller. Maybe
it's filmed in Ireland with major tax breaks too, so $10 million. It's probably a package deal or something else. I wonder
though. This was filmed in what? It's came out on the 3rd. It's available for rent on Vudu right now for $6. I want. They filmed it in
Ireland.
No, I'm saying when they filmed it though. It took place between between February 6th and February 29th of last year. So I bet you COVID really messed up this movie.
It's quite possible.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
And they had to cut budgets. They can only do certain things. They can only film for so long. And then trying to get funds, I would like this would have been great if you would have did a Kickstarter. You know, Kickstarter. There's things. If you get the right people on here, they can bring in money. Dude, ain't that hard, you know? But 2020 is hard for any movies right now, and especially theaters. I mean, this is help out that is going right to streaming, because I don't think it would have survived in the theaters. You know, if there would not made money whatsoever. But like I said, I give it a chance. It's Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce usually doesn't let me down, but I'd say I'd say maybe 3 out of 5. So average.
I would probably give it a 2 out of 5, but you know, in today's world, I say, you know, what's its competition? Because if this was 20 years ago or more, it'd definitely be a 2 out of 5. But relative to a lot of stuff that's out there today that's crap, I go, you know, it's not much worse than that, and it's on a decent or a small budget, so it's done decently. And I like what you said the most. Guy Pearce doesn't let me down, and he's not going to let you down if you watch this film. So watching this alone, you're getting a good performance, if nothing else. So there you have, ladies and gentlemen, Zone 414 starring Guy Pearce, Matilda, and a few other people in here that if you watch some really esoteric things like Vikings and all that, you might recognize some there. It's kind of variation on a theme of Blade Runner, where a lot of people are saying online, and they're kind of right to it, but it's still a decent watch, and it's not offensive in any way, and it's visually bordering on stunning in some places. It's an interesting setup, decent flick. Yeah, check it out. You know what? It's good filler. There you go. All right, I'd like to thank RDV for joining me tonight and reviewing this film here, like we always do here on Tuesday nights, but primarily action films, a lot of times 80s films, sometimes something unrelated as we go into the Halloween season here, but that's why we do what we do here on the Xtreme Movie Show. We just got done finishing season 2 of Twin Peaks on Xtreme TV, where we cover some TV shows. We just did Fire Walk with Me, and we're getting ready to start season 3 of Twin Peaks. Looking forward to seeing some extra stuff that we put in there for Halloween as it's coming up over the next month or so. So for everybody here involved in the Xtreme Movie Show, I'm your host, Rob. I'd like to say thanks for listening. As always, have a good night and stay extreme.